Marvel Studios shuffles its slate again. Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie is not happening. The actor strike is over, and we talk about lots of trailers that came out. All that and more on today's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name is Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today, we have Haley Hobbs. What's going on, Haley Hobbs?
Hey, here we are again.
Yes, we are indeed. And Jay Sisson. What's happening, Jay?
I'm feeling better this week. I've bounced back. I got the energy bar full, and I'm ready to go. Don't jinx it, but I'm ready to go.
You sound much less froggish. I like it. And J. Scotty St. Clair, what's going on?
Hey, doing A-OK over here. You know, some of our favorite franchises may be seeing some slowdowns, but there's no lack of news, so it's always a fun time here at Multiverse News.
That's right. When you can't get any Marvel content till like 2034, you come to Multiverse News to hear us talk about it. The fact that we can't get Marvel content until 2034. But that is the case. We do have a big pushback to talk about. Lots of things shaken up. But it's a crazy busy news week. So we're going to dive right in. Here it goes. It's devastating news for MCU fans everywhere. The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that Deadpool 3 will be the only MCU film released in 2024. The shift starts with Deadpool 3's release date now to July 26th instead of May 3rd and trickles down to the other MCU films. Captain America New World Order's new release date is February 25th, 2025. Thunderbolts is moved to July 25th, 2025. And Blade is now pushed to November 7th, 2025. Blade and Thunderbolts did not have scripts going into this year's writer's strike, with the race to rearrange schedules by all studios. Which of these MCU delays hits the hardest? Hits different, as they used to say.
Yeah, devastating certainly is the word. Yes, especially in terms of my fantasy draft. But that's, that's neither here nor there.
I demand we redraft.
Complete massacre. It was a complete massacre of the fantasy rosters.
Yep.
Yes, it was. But, this really isn't all that unexpected. And I will say, as disappointing it is as a fan and as a contributor to shows like these, I am seeing the silver lining here. We talked about, Marvel kind of needing to have this slowdown, this time to kind of readjust and reconfigure, as it seems like the reception to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole has kind of waned a little bit. So I think it makes sense that Deadpool 3 is the one that was the only one that had actually actively entered production. It was pretty far along production as far as we understand here. But I will say, in terms of which of these delays hits the hardest, I will say it's Captain America Brave New World. With that one, every single Marvel movie and every big budget movie really they factor for reshoots. That's the thing. But the circumstances regarding this one are a little bit different. There are reports coming out that apparently they did a screening with audience members at Marvel Studios that included employees and their children and family, and the reception was really, really negative to this movie. So they're kind of doing a complete overhaul. We're hearing talks of 3 big set pieces being completely redone, and it kind of reminds me of what we said when the Daredevil series saw similar shakeups, and again, disappointing it is to have these properties delayed if it means that it's going to result in a better quality product. It sounds good to me. Regarding the rest of these, Blade, that one doesn't hurt quite as badly, but it's just I'm starting to have doubts whether or not that movie's ever going to get made. We talked about it last week about how Mahershala Ali was already on the fence, and now this thing just continues to kind of gestate in production hell here. So those are kind of my takes. The Thunderbolts, that's not super unsurprising, but hopefully we don't see a ton more delays, because these are really, really getting pushed back pretty significantly. And as it stands right now, 2025 is going to be a packed and stacked year.
Yeah, Captain America must have been absolute train wreck for them to push it back that far, because it was done shooting. Like they had probably it was completely done shooting. They had wrapped. And so it really just needed VFX and any reshoots that needed to happen, which shouldn't have taken that long. So to push it back that far, which I think you said February 25th, I think it's actually February 14th is the actual date, which seems odd to me, like Valentine's Day for Captain America New World Order, but I guess, I don't know.
Aren't you in love with America? Celebrate that with Brave New World.
America's ass on Valentine's Day sounds all right.
Hey, babe, you want to go see Captain America for Valentine's Day? Like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. The point is, it's like these delays are huge because it pushes back everything else. This probably pushes back the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and all these characters that we thought were really starting to take shape in 2025 and 2026 and gear up towards these crossover movies. All of that has to be pushed back now. And I think some of the excitement around Marvel bringing those characters under their umbrella has died off a little bit, and maybe that'll come back whenever you start to see casting and you start to see movies getting confirmed and people coming in to write scripts and all of that. But at this present moment, that's what makes it sting to me, is just this idea that we have this entire gap year next year with Deadpool happening at least, but then, and maybe a couple Disney Plus shows, like maybe Agatha, we know Echo for sure, but that's just right around the corner. But then to have to wait until 2025, I mean, it's tough, especially coming off like a really low opening weekend with the Marvels and like all this type of stuff. It's like, I think people who are fans of the MCU are sort of, they're feeling it right now. Like there's a lot of potentially up in the air. Again, Scotty, like what you said about seeing the silver lining, I agree with you. I think this ultimately can be a good thing because you can step back, you can reassess what you're doing, you can maybe look at all this like content that they've talked about being too much. You can assess, what do we want to do? What do we want to not do? Like, how do we want to move this going forward? But yeah, I mean, I was kind of freaking myself out the other day. I was thinking about how old am I going to be whenever I watch Thunderbolts? Okay, wait, like before I watch Captain America, I'm going to have 2 more Christmases and I'm going to have 2 Thanksgivings, a presidential election. It's like you start going through all this and you're like, oh man, it's going to be a long time. But, it is what it is. I mean, we just got off the longest strike in Hollywood history. Like, that's what happens. That's where we're at.
The biggest shock to me was the Blade date, because I just had, we'd heard so many pushbacks and things about shakeups in that script. And Jay Scotty, you said you didn't think it was ever coming, and that's kind of where I was. But the fact that they confirmed a new date, I mean, I know they kind of have to claim these dates ahead of time to get especially with all these studios trying to claim dates. But it is strange. I'm hoping that that's a hopeful sign for Blade, that it is still coming, because I was starting to worry about that movie ever coming out with Mahershala Ali in the lead. All right, up next, rather than make his mark in a galaxy far, far away, Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige is going to turn his space laser focus back to projects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A simple no answered the question as to whether he would be producing a Star Wars film. The news that Kevin Feige would helm a Star Wars film broke in 2019, with Loki writer Michael Waldron being signed on in 2021. Feige is a vocal Star Wars fan, but with the sky is falling narrative surrounding Marvel Studios, was anyone surprised by this news?
No, but I felt bad for Kevin Feige because he does love Star Wars so much, and he's based a lot of the principles that have made up the MCU on Star Wars, and so that this was probably like a dream job for him, and now he can't do it because the MCU fell apart because he dared turn away and try to delegate for like 3 years, and that didn't work out for them. So it's not surprising at all. I would love to see him have the opportunity still to do this in the future. Maybe, when we can figure out if he has his own Dave Filoni to his George Lucas and somebody else can take control of the MCU and do as good a job as he did. But yeah, I mostly just felt bad for him after this.
Yeah, not surprising at all. I think it's the right move. I think we need Kevin Feige focused. They've already split his attention so much, and a lot of what we've been seeing in these articles, that big Variety article and that book, The Reign of the MCU, outlined the fact that this new phase was dividing his attention more and more, and he was putting more lieutenants in charge of things, and those things didn't seem to pan out the way they wanted. And so they need his attention even more focused on Marvel, not leaving the MCU to go do something else. But yeah, it's scary because, Kevin Feige's been doing this for 15 years now. So longer than that. I mean, 23 years since X-Men. But he's been the head of the studio for 15 years, and I hope they can find a way to replicate the success that he's created. It's so hard to see someone that's so good at something, apparently, because he's just good at running the studio. And then how do you put your decision making down as principles and be able to replicate that in the future? And it's a challenge every leader faces.
Well, and props to him for trying. He clearly felt like he had the right people in place to do it. And so many leaders will only have a chokehold on something until they're way past their prime in it. And so he at least tried to farm it out a little bit. I think that his knowledge and expertise was just maybe a little underestimated, even by perhaps him.
Yeah. It's somebody else could do this job, surely.
Yeah.
You both make a lot of great points about how much of a factor the state of Marvel is right now in terms of this, this decision and it not being all that surprising. But I can't help but also note, I really feel like Star Wars has kind of emerged as this franchise that's kind of what have you done for me lately? Marvel and DC both have had their fair share of, creative shakeups and turnover mid-production. But we talked about Guillermo del Toro, his project, Taika Waititi, Patty Jenkins, Colin Trevorrow, the list goes on and on. Lord and Miller having, Solo yanked from them. And, I think Star Wars needs to kind of look inward and kind of examine where that's coming from, because you look at projects like, what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are doing, and those seem to be, doing pretty well.
Yeah, I think this movie was really confirmed during that explosion of content that was supposedly coming. It was that big, we're making all the Marvel, we're making all the Star Wars, we're going to pack Disney Plus so full that every time you turn around, there's going to be something new that's going to connect to everything. And that was, we've talked about it before, but that was clearly not the right move. It did seem like the right move at the time. Disney Plus was new. We were coming off of Avengers Endgame. We were coming off of the sequel trilogy, which, didn't end in the best way. But I think at this point, Rise of Skywalker hadn't come out, if I remember right. And so you still kind of had this, that made sense, business sense at the time. It seemed like a shoo-in. It seemed like you slap that Marvel logo on something, you slap that Lucasfilm logo on something, it's a guaranteed success. If it's on Disney Plus, if it's in the theater. And so this, of course, Kevin Feige's making a Star Wars movie. Well, of course he is, So to see a lot of these projects get rolled back in our years since, and going through COVID and going through changes in the industry and all this type of stuff, it's not surprising. It's not surprising from a Kevin Feige perspective. He is needed in a particular place, and it is not surprising from a Star Wars perspective. They do not need more universes, more movies, more branched storylines at the moment. So, My man's getting tired though. He wants to retire at some point, he's he's looking at this how am I ever gonna? What's my exit plan? How am I gonna get out of this thing? I don't know if there's an answer, Kevin. You might be there forever. They're gonna have to build that bot of you from She-Hulk.
I'm sure Marvel wants him to stay because of the cachet he brings, just his name. People trust his name. I mean, it's now emblazoned on all the new things. It's all Kevin Feige Productions. But you got to be thinking, he might be thinking I should have just bowed out after Endgame and it been my swan song, and then let other people take it and let them be responsible for this crazy trying to rebuild what has just been finished,
Even if he had taken that course, it would have been only a matter of time before they just back the dump truck of money, because Bob Iger, the same thing, they gave it to Bob Chapek for less than 2 years, and Bob Iger comes right back. Yeah,
it's so hard to know. So many properties, and this goes for every kind of show, every kind of movie series, writers, directors, it just takes people a minute to get their feet under them, and sometimes it takes making the thing to learn how to make the next one, and it just feels like with Marvel, right now think the stakes are so high after Endgame that like it's impossible to have a failure and then kind of dust it off and make a sequel that like sort of picks up the good parts. It's just hard to do. It's just a really hard time for it.
Well, and I used the George Lucas, Dave Filoni comparison because I think that that's what needs to happen. But look at how long that took. George Lucas started Star Wars in 1977. And if I quote, let's see, Dave Filoni came in to do the Clone Wars in 2008. So, you know, you can't just hand the keys over after 10 years to something that you've spent an insurmountable time building that you want to be really high quality. And they're a little different in that George Lucas created Star Wars and Marvel is from an existing IP. That's oversimplifying it, but you know what I mean. But I think that 10 years is not enough to do what Kevin Feige did and then try to just farm it out to different people. You still have to have that one leader who has the vision, and that's who he is. And that's the successor he'll have to find eventually.
I don't want to take anything away from Kevin Feige because all of the credit to the world and him. He has done something, you know, incredible and unique with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But he is not alone in that endeavor. And I also want to like note, I can't help but think of like, you know, Marcus and McFeely. Like they contributed so heavily to like when the Marvel Cinematic Universe really hit its stride in Phase 3. So even if you don't bring them back as like writers forthright, maybe like bring them in as consultants that can kind of like shepherd like, you know, think bubbles and stuff like that and really, you know, get this narrative back on course.
Yeah, Phase 1, I mean, we have rose-colored glasses because of the end of the Infinity Saga, but like Phase 1 was pretty messy from a business and entertainment standpoint. Like directors did not get along. A lot of those films like did not connect in the ways that they were envisioned to connect. There was a lot of drama behind the scenes. Like it was really messy at the beginning. And Feige, he was the one who was able to get in, like choose directors that could carry his vision, people that could get along to where now it's widely known that besides just a couple hiccups there, here and there, that Marvel Studios is a place that people love to work for and they love to come back and direct for, and that they feel supported and they feel like they can create something they want to create. And that took time, though. That was not the way it was at the very beginning. Those first few films, he had a lot of work to do to really like learn to build the plane as it was in the air and try to figure out how he was going to connect this giant universe together. So that's a mind that just doesn't come along in Hollywood and stick for a long time very often. You know, Marvel, Disney, in a wider sense, knows what they have in Feige, and we've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about it on the MCU cast this week about the idea that like the whole first few phases are not all amazing movies. They're all good. Most of them are good. But a lot of them are just kind of base hits, but they all get characters on base. And then you hit the grand slam of an Avengers movie or an Endgame or a Civil War. Those ones that like, or Winter Soldier, those ones that really, like, you set up the characters by getting them on base, and then you hit the home run. Like, but some of those movies don't have to all be amazing, but it seems like after Endgame, our expectations are at this level that every movie you're expecting it all to be that level. It all has to be a home run, and, like, that's not how Phase 1 through 3 were. In retrospect, they feel that way, but it's not how it was during the actual production. It was a real hit or miss. Some of them were great, some were okay, and then they'd come together to do a great thing.
I think 2016 to 2019 is where you really saw, like, I don't think there was like a single miss, really.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true. They definitely got like really, really singing there, but like they're still like good and great. You know what I mean? They're all kind of there's not like a Thor: The Dark World in there, but there are. I'm trying to think of an example without being too offensive, but like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I like it. Don't love it. Like, it's not the best movie in the franchise, you know. It's a base hit, I think, but it's a good movie, but then it sets up all of Endgame, you know.
Right.
Anyway, so next up. A vote last Friday brought a tentative agreement between the majority of SAG-AFTRA's national board and the studio CEOs of AMPTP, ending the 118-day actor strike. The Guild stated that the total package is valued at more than $1 billion in new wages and benefit plan funding. The 80-page summary of the agreement is not yet public, but was made available to Guild members on November 13th. Ratification voting for the 160,000 plus members of SAG-AFTRA runs from November 14th through the first week of December. SAG-AFTRA calls the agreement a landmark achievement for the union. And aren't we excited to hear the good news?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we knew that we were going to get to report on this eventually, but the weeks just kept going on and on and on with no end in sight, and we were coming up on the
next week. Next week.
Yeah, I was like, it's right around the corner, I promise. And then we were bordering on the holiday season, which is why this got done so fast. Because if we went into the holiday season and this was not done, it was not getting done until January at the earliest. In which case, like, nuke it all. Like, we're talking Captain America's coming out 2027 or something at that point. I mean, we're in trouble if that's the case. But looking at the summary, it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. It's hard to understand. There's a lot of very intricate details that people who get paid a lot of money to pour over entertainment contracts wrote and reviewed from both sides. There were really two things I wanted to talk about that I thought were the most interesting things in this thing. One is the payments and the distribution of payment. Essentially what happens, from what I understand, is that when it comes to streaming revenue, that was a big sticking point at the beginning. So initially, the Actors Guild asked for 4% sharing of streaming revenue, and the studios were like, go jump off a bridge, like, no way. And so then they came back with 2%, and they were like, we're going to let this go on forever if you don't, so eventually what they came up with was that for the top streaming shows, and it's a little similar to the writers, for the top streaming shows, actors are going to get a 100% residual increase, but the way that that's split up is a little bit controversial. 75% of that 100% is going to go to the actor, but then 25% is going to go to a fund that is a joint fund that's held between SAG-AFTRA and the studios, and then they decide how to distribute it to other actors. So I thought that was fascinating. I thought that it's apparently already the formula for like commercials for actors, and it's just kind of being adapted into streaming. But I don't know if that necessarily solves our problems when it comes to streaming, but it is at least a different method than what's been used. The other thing I wanted to talk about was AI, because that was the big sticking point, and it seemed like that was the sticking point. Like, that's what took them so long to get through, and they kept having to come back to. And studios and the Actors Guild both acknowledged the fact that the reason this was so hard to come to an agreement on was because the technology is just changing so fast. I mean, think about how much AI has changed since January. Now imagine it in 3 years. I mean, we can't even really imagine what it's going to be capable of at that point. And so studios and actors both didn't really, they're trying to create a deal that's supposed to last 3 years for a technology that's changing every week. It's evolving and it's getting better and it can do more things all the time. And that was a big challenge. But here's some of the main stuff, okay? So if you're going to be AI scanned, you have to have informed consent and compensation for a background scan. So that has to happen. Studios have to ask for approval when it's used, though, not up front. So they can't just be like, Haley Hobbs, I want to scan you one time, and then I'm going to use you whenever I want and digitize you into the background of, a
can't
sitcom
scan me.
So yeah, you have to ask permission every time, which was something that SAG-AFTRA really fought for. You cannot use AI duplicates to avoid hiring background actors. So you cannot replace a background actor with an AI-generated actor as like a sub-in. Like, you have to hire background actors. As far as artificial performers go, you have to get consent from the performers whose features you are using to create an artificial performer. So if, like, I use your eyebrow to create an artificial performer, I have to get your consent to do that. So again, that was a big push from SAG-AFTRA. You have to tell the Screen Actors Guild anytime you use an AI performer. So if I ever use it, now I don't have to tell the public, So, I could put somebody in and not tell the public, but I do have to tell the Screen Actors Guild. And then lastly, SAG-AFTRA can negotiate pay for how this is used. So if your features get used to create an AI digitized thing, SAG-AFTRA can negotiate payment on your behalf on how that looks. From what I understand, a lot of this is still somewhat being read through and talked about. There's debates going on right now about where the loopholes, can you take me, and I know you can't digitize me, but can you take me and make me say something different? Does that get past, if I'm cursing and you want to make a made-for-TV version, could you edit my face to make me say something that's not cursing? Or if I'm sitting in a car, could you move me from the front seat to the back seat and have me looking out this window? You know what I mean? There's all that type of that. Those conversations are going on right now among SAG-AFTRA members about where are the loopholes. But those were kind of the two biggest things that I took away. There's so much more to go through, but it's all boring. So I'm just happy it's over. Let's get everything back into production. Let's get this thing officially over. Let's get moving.
All I have to say is hallelujah. As someone who likes all this stuff and wants to talk about it, I'm just excited that that's over and we can get to talking about the fun stuff of the creativity that's being put out instead of all the business side. I mean, we're always going to have talk about the business side of things on this show, but I just want to hear the creativity of people and the exciting new projects and new things being announced and things we never expected. It feels like we've been doing this show so long and it feels like so few things have been announced. You know what I mean? So few new things. It's updates on old things, but the idea of someone saying, "Hey, here's a movie that's coming out you haven't even heard of." It feels almost weird to think about that.
Yeah, how refreshing was it to see videos of Tom Hiddleston talking about Loki and Brie Larson talking about the Marvels, and I was just man, I've been missing that kind of content.
They put him on a jet.
They were like, get on Fallon, get on Kimmel, you're gonna be everywhere at the same time. But yeah, I didn't realize how much I was missing that content until I started seeing it pop up. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think I was going to have anything to say on this one, but do appreciate you, Jay, for kind of deciphering and distilling the important stuff here, because it was a lot of dense legal jargon. Yeah. But one thing you pointed out that hasn't left my mind since you kind of said it is how the residuals are going to work more akin to something for commercial actors, which is something I knew somewhere in the back of my mind. I think I listened to a podcast where a comedian talked about resting on some residuals from a nationwide commercial for a couple of years or something like that, and it got me thinking. I don't know, maybe it could be a Spotify poll question, maybe it could be a topic for Commute the Podcast, but which actor do you think has grossed the highest amount for any commercial? What is the longest running or most prolific commercial that comes to mind? And I don't know, Wilford
the lady
Brimley,
that plays
he's got to
Flo
be up there.
in Progressive. Commercial.
Are we talking total though, or are we talking one commercial, one commercial to rule them all, or are we talking somebody's done a string, the Verizon guy who's now the Sprint guy,
yeah.
I would like to know both. If that's not asking too much.
I'll look into it. I'll put it in the docket.
Well, we also have a whole lot of trailers that dropped this week. Because I'm assuming because of these resolutions of the strikes, we're finally getting them willing to say things are coming out. All these studios are willing to say, "Hey, a movie is actually going to hit its date." And so we've got a lot of trailers that dropped, and we're just going to run down them. And dude, it's not really a lightning round. We can all talk if we want to, but we're kind of trying to move quick. So the first one we're going to talk about is Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
I love the Ghostbusters movies. And really Ghostbusters Afterlife surprised me in that it was pretty heartwarming and fun to watch. And this Frozen Empire one, what's interesting with these movies, these reboots, I guess they're kind of more continuations of the original movies, is each one is sort of mirroring the original. So the first one is the Discovery, the origin movie. And then this Frozen Empire one, the second Ghostbusters was about the big, I forget his name, Ian the Savage, that's not what it was, but you know what I mean? Then the hatred comes over New York City and everybody's so angry, and that's what the spirits take hold of, and this one is fear. And so I like that they're doing the same things, but not doing the same things, and I think that's why these are successful and why people like them.
I love the original Ghostbusters movies, and I liked the Afterlife a lot, and the all-female reboot from a few years ago wasn't all bad.
I didn't see that.
Oh, you didn't see it?
No.
Well, the thing that I'm interested to see in this trailer is that Kumail Nanjiani, Patton Oswalt, and Paul Rudd are all in it. It feels to me like they're taking the Afterlife universe and moving it into this movie, but those three actors are not. It feels like they're trying to put together a Ghostbusters team to me. I think they're going to backdoor us into those three wearing the suits at some point, and it'll feel like, oh, three comic actors putting on the suits. That's kind of what the original Ghostbusters was. That's what they tried to do in the all-female reboot too, was like put actual comedians in these roles and let them do their thing.
I don't hate it. I like it.
I like it. All three of those would be great in that.
Yeah.
I don't know who the fourth would be.
It would be Carrie Coon, wouldn't it? No?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know Carrie Coon.
I love Carrie Coon.
Who is Carrie Coon?
Great.
Sorry.
She's the mom in the Afterlife movie.
Oh,
she's in this one
okay.
too.
That would make sense. And of course the kids will be involved too. So Carrie Coon, that makes sense.
Yeah. Vigo is the villain in the second one. Sorry, I had to not let that go.
What did you say it was?
Ivan the Terrible. Generic old school villain.
Oh man. Fun. Okay, next we got Inside Out 2. Jay, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's controversial to say what you think the best Pixar movie is. I've said controversial things on this podcast before, but I'm just going to go for it. I think Inside Out is the best Pixar movie of all 25 or whatever. I think it is a really great concept. I think it's super well executed. The voice acting's great. The story's great. It's a super original idea. And it hit at the right time. Inside Out 2, I'm definitely intrigued by. It seems like they're bringing in more emotions. They're focusing on the same person, but now she's older. She's a teenager, so they're bringing in an anxiety character voiced by Maya Hawke, and they're bringing in a couple other people too. So that she just joins a strong voice cast in what I think is a really strong movie. So I'm definitely interested in it.
What is yellow in the original Inside Out? Which one of the characters was yellow?
Joy. That was Joy.
Is it Joy?
Amy Poehler.
Correct.
I have not seen Inside Out, but I was just trying to analyze the colors of the movie, and they bring in the trailer, they bring in anxiety, and it's orange. And I was wondering if it was a red and a yellow mixing, because anger or anger, fear type emotions mixing with I guess anger is the emotion that's red. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that might be some sort of color-coded thing there. But I haven't seen Inside Out, and I was actually scared to watch this trailer because I was scared it was going to be spoilers for the original one, because I really do want to see it. I've wanted to see it since it came out, and I just haven't.
I don't think you can really spoil the first one.
No.
It's kind of just a movie there's not really a spoiler for it, I think you could just watch it, and even knowing
there's
a lot of
one
stuff.
scene that could potentially be
Okay,
that's a real tearjerker, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, they spoil it in She-Hulk.
Oh, that's right, they do, don't they? That's right, they do.
I remember hearing something in She-Hulk that spoiled it, and I memory wiped myself. I neuralized myself. I was
repeat it.
Don't remember whatever they just said. I have that superpower.
I'm going to chime in on Inside Out 2 just because it is a big one. And, thinking about Pixar, they've tried a couple of different things here recently. Elemental ended up actually, in the long run, actually did pretty well for them, and that's exciting to see. That was a really great movie that I think, the initial box office kind of told this story of failure, and that didn't turn out to be the case. But then you look at something like Lightyear, which was, totally the opposite. It's they keep going back to Toy Story. They keep trying to mine these tried and true things. But to your point, Jay, I don't know if I'll give it top 5 Pixar, but Inside Out is incredible. It makes sense to revisit this one and kind of build out that franchise, and just the concept alone, the fact that you've got, this protagonist and you're literally seeing what's going on in literally seeing what's going on in inside their emotions, and to see this protagonist get older and go through puberty. It's just, it's ripe. The kids that were growing up that were, Riley's age when the first Inside Out came out, it makes sense that they would be, maturing right alongside her, and it should resonate with them.
Yes. The next is we have the Garfield movie, which I'm going to talk about. I thought it was an interesting way they introduced this one. I think they almost made a little short film about the origins of the story of Garfield and John, and then just a lot of slapstick fun sort of animation stuff. I think this looks fine. But the part that bothers me is Chris Pratt as Garfield. And I know we've talked about it before, I think when he was announced, I think. But man, stop putting Chris Pratt in all your animated movies. It's like every animated hero just sounds the same. Like he's not doing a voice. He's not a voice actor, man. I love Chris Pratt. I love Guardians, say that. But what his performance brings to something is like his wonderful improvisation in like Parks and Rec and stuff. He's so good at that, and he's so smart and funny and quick. And I just feel like him like just voicing these basic ass Garfield lines just feels like a waste of his potential, and like doesn't bring anything to the Garfield franchise. I'm just like, okay, this doesn't feel like Garfield. It's just Chris Pratt again, just
if
Mario
you haven't
again.
watched the trailer, you already know what it sounds like. Because if you can just hear in your head Chris Pratt doing Garfield's voice, you're there. Like, it's just exactly what you think it sounds like.
I think that's charitable. I think it's charitable. It doesn't even sound like he's doing a voice. He's just being Chris Pratt and talking through the role. I do not like that style. There's just so many amazing voice actors out there who could be providing us with like a memorable performance. There's actually a great anime. I think it's. I always forget what YouTubers I watched when they did these essays. I believe it was Patrick H. Willem did one about animated movies and how Robin Williams ruined them all because Robin Williams was so amazing as the genie that like ever since then they're like, oh, what you do is you get a star to be in your animated movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And like it's the same problem with like everyone copying Marvel because they're a big canon, and now everyone makes toy movies because Barbie was successful. Like Robin Williams was so amazing, not because he was a famous person. He was amazing because he was Robin Williams, and he was freaking amazing, and everyone loved it. But every movie after that, they stopped casting voice actors in these roles, and they started casting stars, just doing their thing. And it's like, no, give me like amazing voice talent. Okay, up next, we have Mean Girls, the musical movie, dropped a trailer.
It did. I didn't hate it, honestly. It was real short. I did see that Jenna Fisher was in it. She's not one of my favorite people, but that's okay. The woman who's playing the lead, who's playing Regina George, played the role on Broadway, so that's awesome that she's getting to reprise the role. And she's also in Sex Lives of College Girls on HBO, and she's really good in that show. So this actually might make me like the musical.
Mean Girls is like holds up so well. Like, it's still funny. It's still like a really well written movie to now, and it resonates. Like, people quote it all the time. Still, kids who weren't even born in 2004 are watching it, and it's resonating with them. And yeah, like, I think this is the right move. Like, make an updated version of it for the modern times where you're trying to kind of capture those kids who were too young for it when it came out. Like, I don't know. Like, I was kind of I had 0% interest, to be honest, in this when it was announced, because I was like, a musical about Mean Girls, like, whatever. But I saw the trailer and I was kind of like walked away being like, okay, like, I see what they're doing here. Like, I'm kind of intrigued a little bit. Like, they're updating it, they're making it more modern. Like, but they're like keeping the core essence of a lot of the jokes that were there in the original movie. So I don't know. I kind of walked away like, definitely like, I see what you're doing, and I don't know. I think it's maybe exciting.
Yeah, I thought the trailer showed a few great shots of cool uses of social media and kind of like giving it a little bit more of an update with technology. But also, I love that Tim Meadows and Tina Fey are back. Like, that's super fun. Like, see, Tim Meadows was one of my favorite parts of Mean Girls. Like, him as the principal was always one of my favorite parts. And so him getting to come back as the principal is amazing. Like, what is it, 20 years later, 15 years later, something like that? That just seems neat to me.
2004, so yeah, almost exactly 20 years later.
Whew, 20 years. So yeah, that's super cool to just see him reprise that role. That's weird. Okay. Reacher Season 2 got a trailer. Jay, you care about this?
I mean, I've never watched Reacher. You outed me. But I will say Amazon Prime hey, they're building a success story over there. They're building The Boys. They just came off of Gen V, which was super positively received. They're running Invincible right now, which is going to have more than what's going on right now. Like, it's going to continue. They got the Rings of Power on deck. They got Fallout coming down in the spring or something like that next year. So yeah, and people love Reacher. So you've got another show. So this is a solid streaming service. It seems like they've really built themselves up to be. I know you're laughing at me because I've never watched Reacher, but
I'm laughing at like the $1 billion retail company. Solid streaming service, yeah, it's doing real good. They're doing all right.
I can
They're
recognize
fine.
Success.
I said it a few weeks ago, I think, but like I really feel about Amazon Prime the way I did about Netflix when they were the place for quality. You know, like they were like, oh, they still put quality stuff out. Every time I hear an Amazon show is coming out, I'm like, it's going to be like well done and probably good. So yeah, I don't care about John Reacher. John Reacher at all. But you know.
Well, I know we have some listeners that are pretty excited for Reacher season 2. So I will say, you know, I know that there were a couple of Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie movies that came out a few years ago, and from all reports, this new series from Amazon is much more accurate to the book series. So, you know, source pages, just saying.
Source pages.
I've got enough
Haley,
to do,
you need something
Scotty.
else to do? You need something else to do, Haley?
You got this, Haley. Cover Reacher.
No.
Okay, but yeah, no shade on anyone who likes Reacher. I just don't know it at all, or like it's just not my bag. Okay,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna watch Reacher. I'm gonna prove everybody
You should.
wrong.
Oh my god! I'm like, and now we've spent this long talking about it. You guys.
Now we basically all have to start a Reacher after show after talking about this
This is
long.
about to turn into the Reacher podcast.
I thought you were about to say Reach Around.
I
Want
wanted
a
to
round table discussion.
We're a family show here.
Yeah. I almost said Reach Around so many times by mistake.
Okay.
It would be really funny just to like start dropping like weekly multiverse reviews and just like little short
Reacher.
ones, just talking about how much we're loving Reacher. Yeah, just for Reacher. Yeah, it's good. Okay, Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire, the Zack Snyder Star Wars movie that's not a Star Wars movie dropped.
But is it?
But I really was like, well, they could totally backdoor this into a Star Wars thing.
You can
they
tell
really
that
could.
he wrote it as a Star Wars movie, and then Star Wars was like, actually, we're going to get somebody else to do Rogue One. And he was like, well, I got this really good idea, though. Like, I got to do something.
He thinks all his ideas are good ideas.
I mean, Sucker Punch doesn't happen otherwise, right?
But no, I kind of love this trailer. I'm super excited for this movie. It's going to be a two-parter. There's going to be another movie come out later. If you like Zack Snyder, I feel like this is probably up your alley. If you're like, sign me up for I didn't see the runtime, but sign me up for a 3.5-hour fantasy epic with slow motion shots and all that like that. You're probably getting what you want out of that. If you don't like Zack Snyder movies, you probably hate this, and you probably watched the trailer and you were like, nope, not for me. But I think creatively it looks cool. I like the idea that I know we joke that it's kind of like Star Wars, and it kind of is, but it is an original IP that he's created, and I think anytime you've got an original IP out there, like I'm willing to hear it out and see what's going on with it. So, yeah, I thought this was the trailer really captured my attention. I think it looks like one of the most exciting things that we got coming up on Netflix in the near future.
I agree. If I had no idea who this was or anything, this trailer just looks great, and it looks intense. It looks all the themes I love out of the story. It looks really visceral and cool, and plucky rebels versus the Empire kind of story. I love it, but I do really just don't like Zack Snyder's stuff. Like I think it's generally I mentioned a few minutes ago, Patrick H. Willem, again, great YouTuber, does these essays. He did one on Zack Snyder, and he calls him the himbo Artur, and like it's basically just like he's really good, like amazing at visual storytelling, just amazing. But if you pay attention to anything under the surface of his films, like the themes never hold together. Like they're just sort of like these wobbly foundations of like the characters don't really. It's really an interesting breakdown. It's like a 2-hour long video where he breaks down like some weird owl movie that he made, like his first film or something.
Gahul.
That one. He breaks it down like intensely and talks about how like it's beautiful visual storytelling and like nothing in it is thematically like makes any thematic sense. And then he uses it to break down all of his other movies and how they do the same thing.
Right.
The only one that seems to really work, well, it doesn't though. The one that works is Watchmen. It's great, but it's just visually adapting the comic book. But even that, he fails because all the bad guys from the comic book that are like really problematic characters in the comic book kind of turn out looking like the heroes of the, like he doesn't it's like he doesn't fully understand.
Well, in Watchmen's case, that was almost like impossible to adapt source material, and to his credit, I think he did a pretty decent job with that one. I like Watchmen 100%. A lot. I do like 300, but I agree with everything that's being said. He's style over substance, and he kind of feels like he should have been a cinematographer rather than a director. But what I really want to say about this trailer is what I said about the first trailer we got. It looks epic, but your trailer does not need to be proportional to your runtime in terms of the length. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, it's like, this is the most Zack Snyder trailer I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, because it's so long, but again, if you're into him, like, I feel like you're like, yes. But like, if you're an anti Zack Snyder movie, like, you're just rolling your eyes. You're like, oh, whatever.
I will say this, that I did not know this. I did not know this is Zack Snyder as I watched it, and I see it now. But like, the characters seem more like real people than most of Zack Snyder's characters. And that excites me because I think that's sometimes where he's lacking. His characters are always icons instead of characters. And like, these characters look like, at least like, they look like real people struggling with a real thing. And that combined with iconic like visual storytelling could be really cool. I think it looks great. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, it's actually, I really appreciate the segue that we have here talking about Rebel Moon and how that was kind of born out of a Rogue One pitch, because this trailer really reminded me of the trailer for Rogue One, where you have like this breathy protagonist kind of coming in and laying out the scene and establishing the world. But, I think fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender are really excited for this one. Everything that I'm seeing looks like it's pretty solid. Looks like a marked improvement over the movie that we won't talk about. But yeah, I really like what I was seeing from Aang. He looks like, appropriately young, but without kind of being, really baby-faced. And, he actually seems capable of, delivering some dramatic chops. The one cast member that I hadn't seen yet that kind of had me scratching my head was Sokka. I'm interested to see what the general consensus is about his casting. But yeah, I think this is one that people are really excited for, and for good reason.
Sweet. And Damsel, another from Netflix.
I actually thought this trailer looked really good. Dark fantasy is where it's at in literature right now. Like, that's such a huge genre that's going on. And so this is playing to that audience. I feel like Netflix's quality in general just has not been there for me lately. The things I've been watching on Netflix, they start well and then they kind of really just peter out there at the end. But this has Robin Wright in it, and I love her, and it has Angela Bassett in it, and I love her, so it looks fun, if nothing else.
But you don't like Millie Bobby Brown.
I noticed that
because
too.
She's the star, and you didn't even mention her.
She's fine.
She's fine.
I can tell you, like, it's like Millie Bobby Brown.
She looked fine. She didn't say one word, I don't think, in the trailer, so I don't really have anything to say about her in it, quite frankly.
I love us just like all calling each other out. Like you can tell we've gotten more comfortable with each other on this show because we're all like, yeah, you don't even know what that is, do you, Jay? Like, you don't like Millie Bobby Brown.
This Rebel Moon is Zack Snyder. I'm like, we talked about it like 2 months ago.
Hey, we need to balance it. If we're over here being like, oh, this Rebel Moon trailer looks awesome, like, we need you to come in here and be like, this Rebel Moon trailer is annoying. Like, we need both sides.
Yeah, bring it in. Lastly, in our trailer park, we have The Witcher: Sirens of the Deep. It's an anime spinoff from the Witcher series.
Yeah, this is one that I, to be transparent, I actually didn't watch it until just a few minutes before we went live and started recording here. And I'm really glad that I checked it out because it looks great. In terms of the animation style, it looks like some of Netflix's best. It looks like it's like right up there with Castlevania. I'm noting some influences from shows like Vox Machina, which I really enjoyed. We were talking about the quality of Amazon here lately. And then also Young Justice, which if you've ever listened to an episode of Animation Deliberation, you know how much we love that show over there. So one important thing to note is that they are bringing back the voice actor for Geralt from the CD Projekt Red video game series, Doug Cockle, and he sounds great. And didn't know about this one beforehand, but chances are I'll be checking it out when it comes out in late 2024.
Sweet. Well, that is our trailer park. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have results to our Spotify poll from last week and a lot of fun lightning round stuff. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Multiverse News. We are going to talk about our Spotify poll real quick. Our Spotify poll was, what is your viewing priority for Thursday's double MCU feature? And 30% of you said you were going to see the Marvels first, and 70% of you said Loki Season 2 finale first, which I think is what it seems like it broke down for everybody, because that's all I'm hearing. Even all I'm hearing about online is Loki finale, mostly. And even like our feedback on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast was like very much Loki heavy. We had like 20 pages of Loki feedback and like 6 pages of the Marvel's feedback. It seems like that's across the board, at least in our little neck of the woods.
Seems like a matter of convenience too. You can stream it at home. It's easy to just finish it out. You got one more episode left, hit play. I'll go see the Marvels tomorrow, type thing. So I think a lot of people, that's the reason I voted for Loki. That's why. It's because it's like I know where I'm going to be Thursday night, like I'm going to be in my living room. So it's just, it was easier.
I saw, I think it was BVK, Brian V. Klein posted on the Stranded Panda chat that he didn't get to go see it this weekend, the Marvels. It was like the first one he'd missed in ever since Marvel put one out. It's the first time he hadn't been able to go on opening weekend. And I wonder if putting those two against each other caused people to go, well, I'll watch this at home and then I'll go, like you said, even if you go Saturday or Sunday, a lot of people, it's their it's like a religious ritual to go on opening night to see a Marvel movie, and like they're basically begging people not to by putting on Loki the same night, and it like ruins that sort of ritual, I guess.
Brian didn't go because he works for the government now.
yes. I knew that he said it was work issues, but I just wonder about a lot of people making that decision to wait for the weekend or whatever. I
think it's more like what Jay's saying, because it's convenient.
Yeah. Also, if you want to participate, we also have a poll up on our Patreon. We have a new Patreon. We've had it for a few weeks. It's patreon.com/multiverse newscast. And you can sign up at only $4, and it supports the show. We make this show every week for you guys for free. But if you want to chip in a little tip, because we do work really hard to bring it to you, go over there and you get to participate in the polls and kind of interact with each other and us on the Patreon, and we would appreciate it. Thank you guys for doing that. And up next, we have our lightning round. We got a bunch of stories in lightning round. As we do every week, I'm going to read the story. Somebody's going to claim it by shouting out their name, and then they get to respond to the story. And then throughout the entire lightning round, we each get one rebuttal to one of these stories. So let's go. First up, Sony's Venom 3, which was initially set to be released in theaters on July 12th, 2024, has been pushed back to November 8th, 2024.
Scotty, seems like a missed opportunity to release it a week after Halloween. If you're going to push it back in that time frame, you might as well take advantage of that. We just saw Five Nights at Freddy that came out like the weekend before Halloween and benefited a lot from that. So I'll be honest, the Venom series is not my favorite, but if they can kind of, return to form to what that first one had in terms of like kind of being like a B movie, I'd be pretty happy. So we'll see.
To give you credit, J. Scotty, you got on me, or you kind of made fun of me last week for calling it FNAF. And I told one of my other friends who was a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, and I called it FNAF to them. They had no idea what I was talking about.
We're trying to make FNAF happen.
We just talked about Mean Girls, so like, stop trying to make FNAF happen. It's not going to happen.
What I just said, Jay.
Oh, did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your
Joke
joke.
thief.
I heard you, Haley.
Can you edit out Haley's and then put mine in instead? Just edit Haley out.
Just have it be an echo.
Next, Warner Brothers has reversed course due to public backlash after it initially decided to shelve Coyote vs. Acme, a live-action CG animation hybrid featuring Looney Tunes characters Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. Filmmaker Dave Green directed the feature, which completed filming last year. The film also starred John Cena and was produced by James Gunn, who also worked on the story. While it was reported that Warner Brothers would be eligible for a $30 million tax write-off for shelving the film, the studio will now allow Green to shop the film to other studios.
Jay, this story just grew and grew throughout the week. So it was initially reported that they created this movie, and I thought the premise kind of sounded interesting. Like, the premise was that Wile E. Coyote was suing Acme because all of the products always break, and like John Cena was supposed to be like the lawyer representing Acme or something, and it was like a mashup of a live action type thing with an animated character. And I thought it was an interesting concept, like having James Gunn involved and all that was kind of a cool angle to it. But yeah, it was going to get shelved. It had finished filming and it was going to get shelved. They were going to Batgirl it. They were going to stick it up there for a $30 million tax write-off. And so that was how it came out, and it started a lot of conversations in the industry. And I think when I first saw that story, I thought, the only way that this is going to stop is if somebody sues. Like, somebody's going to have to take this into the court system, and they're going to have to set a precedent here with studios that this is something that you cannot do. You cannot go in and just shelf a movie because you think it's going to benefit you in the long run financially to take something that you made and just toss it out, and nobody ever gets to see it. And then the directors who had projects that were around Warner Brothers or like in the pipeline with Warner Brothers, had meetings with them set up, started rebelling, and there was a mutiny, and they started canceling their meetings with Warner Brothers. Like, they started telling Warner Brothers, like, hey, we got a project that we're supposed to be talking about, and now we don't because you might shelve it if we make it. And that's a great thing. Like, that's a great movement, because I think directors saw themselves and said, I can see this happening to me. Like, I can see myself creating a movie and then a studio deciding that they want to get rid of it after they've wasted all of my time making it up to this point. So Warner Brothers kind of saw the writing on the wall here that they had created a public backlash, and they are allowing, like you said, this film to be shopped to someone else. So it'll probably get picked up by somebody and distributed by somebody, especially after all the attention. But I thought it was a fascinating story. I thought it was like a really interesting industry development. That was not good for the industry. That Batgirl move was not good for the industry, and that was what people were afraid of, is that it would keep happening, that these studios would take 100 shots and then they'd shelve 90 of them, and then just kind of keep the content money train rolling and crushing everyone's creative vision. So to see directors step back and say, let's reassess this and push back on that a little bit. Like, we don't need your money if it's going to be like that. That's big. I think that's been a really interesting story that's unfolded here over this past week.
That's huge, and that's beautiful. I love that. Okay, up next, The Marvels opened to the lowest opening weekend for an MCU film at $47 million domestically and $110 million worldwide, coming in well below optimistic projections.
Haley, we've talked about this for weeks and weeks, and so really it's not surprising, but it's a damn shame, because The Marvels is an excellent movie, and if you're not going to see it, you're missing out. And I won't even spoil anything, but you're missing way out on some major stuff.
Maybe that's what we do. All right, next week on Multiverse News, we're just going to be dropping random spoilers to the Marvels, so that if you don't go see it this week, it's your fault. Just teasing.
Yeah, I got to use the rebuttal on this one. Like, I don't know. I'll try to keep this not negative, but I've been really discouraged by a lot of the talk around this movie has been very discouraging to me. Like, it's been because I don't understand it. Like, I'm gonna try to like not be soapboxy, but like I just don't understand like hating something that you haven't seen and then just like going after it so publicly, even though you haven't seen it or don't plan to see it, and like finding like dancing on the grave of something that you do not like. Like, I just don't understand it. And when I see a movie that I don't like, I just don't talk about it anymore. And I don't like not seeing movies that I don't like. Like that gives me a bad feeling. Like when I go to a movie thinking like I'm going to like this and I don't like it, like I'd hate that feeling. So I don't understand this like just really toxic like thing that's been built up around this movie. I just find it really discouraging. And I think like I really hope that that's not the future of discourse around movies, because it's just, I don't know, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Like, I get that. Like, it's fine. If you don't like it, that's fine. Like, no one telling you have to like it. I totally get that. But like, I don't know. I don't get like such a rush to just burn it and be so public about it and just like I said, dance on its grave so publicly. I don't know. I've felt like it's been a really bad look for it, and it's not the movie's fault. It is what it is. But I've hated that. Like, I've hated seeing all of that going on. It's been frustrating.
Up next, Netflix announced that it's currently developing an animated Terminator series that will follow new characters in the Terminator universe. Currently under the working title Terminator the Anime series, and will be produced by Japanese animation studio Production IG.
Scotty, Terminator is one of those franchises that at this point, I think there are more misses than hits, unfortunately. I actually did like Dark Fates. I thought it was better than a lot of people seem to think, but the real draw for this one for me is Production IG. They did one of the episodes of Star Wars Visions on Disney Plus for its first volume, The Ninth Jedi, which if you talk to anybody that's seen Visions, like, The Ninth Jedi is like the standout episode that a lot of people want to see that story revisited and continued. So I'm sure they're going to bring that same level of quality and their ability to kind of bring mechanisms and that mechanical side to a like lived-in world. So and they can really deliver on the action too. So as a fan of animation, a fan of sci-fi, and a fan of a couple of entries in the Terminator franchise, this is one to look forward to.
Awesome. Despite the WGA and SAG-AFTRA halting Hollywood for months, James Gunn says his first DC film of the new universe, Superman Legacy, is still on track to make its debut on July 11th, 2025. Matt, this seems like James Gunn was scabbing. Right? Like,
did he have it written beforehand? I can't remember.
I feel like
if he
maybe
said
he
that.
did.
He at least posted a front page and was like, look, it's Superman Legacy, but I don't know if that means that he was done or not.
Right. I imagine it was still going through writing process and rewrites. And he is also like the producer and the head of the whole thing. And like, who knows the rules. And I said this all along, like, writers are still going to write. Like, it's just a matter of like when they're not turning things into the studio. There's probably people still writing things. So James Gunn probably wrote throughout, but like, it sounds like he continued work on this so that his productions, this new DCU didn't get those same crazy 2-year pushbacks like Marvel's going to have. So they can get in there while Marvel maybe still like getting back on their feet. DC can hit them. But nah, I don't know if that's really considered scabbing, if he just like kept it in a drawer and worked on it at home. But I don't know. Seems like he probably worked on it at least.
Time that could have been spent on the picket line, just saying.
That's right.
With his brother.
Yeah. And I'm sure he was supportive of the strike. I'm
better watch out. You better watch out. He's going to start adding Multiverse News on. We don't have a Threads, but he's going to come after us.
Oh, we gotta get on. We gotta get on that Threads. Let James come after me. I love you, James. All right. In a recent interview, Euphoria actor Jacob Elordi revealed that he received a proposal to test for the role of Clark Kent, but turned it down immediately. Well, they asked me to read for Superman, he told GQ. That was immediately no, thank you. That's too much. That's too dark for me.
Scotty, good. Sounds like he wasn't meant for the role if he doesn't understand the core of Superman, because everything we've been hearing about Legacy is that this is supposed to be a return to like what we love about Superman as like this beacon of hope. But, to his credit, the guy's a talented actor. I've seen a few episodes of Euphoria and I remember him. I haven't seen Priscilla, which is out in theaters right now, but he's playing Elvis in that. And I've heard, a lot of acclaim for his performance in that. So yeah, he is a dead ringer for Clark Kent, but he apparently does not, embody those qualities that make one a Superman. So sounds like we got the right guy in David Cornsweet.
Tiny, but I did try to dig into what he was talking about, because I was dark, because I was wondering if this was is this revealing things about the script? Was the script darker than we think, or blah? Right. It turns out it basically is he's saying that would be a dark turn for his career. He doesn't want to do big superhero movies. He said I want to do things that interest me, not movies. He basically said these kind of movies bore me, and it would be a dark turn for my career to take something like that, I guess, for the paycheck or whatever. Okay. So I guess that's it. Less of not understanding the character and more of he doesn't want to do superhero movies, which cool.
Oh, I appreciate you clarifying his comments, but then it just seems like it works out for everybody. He's not interested. We don't want someone that's not interested in the role.
Absolutely. So another Gwyneth Paltrow situation.
Ooh, good call.
Sorry. At me on Threads.
Let's not go down the goop route, please.
We don't want to get those goopties after us. It's like Swifties, but for goop.
There's an X-Men named Dupe. When the MCU finally does get to the X-Men, if there's not, a joke there with Gwyneth Paltrow, they're missing out.
All right. Netflix has attached Denzel Washington to play the ancient Carthaginian general Hannibal in an untitled epic drama that will reteam him with Antoine Fuqua.
Jay, Hollywood's been trying to make a movie about Hannibal attacking Rome for a very long time. There was actually a film in early production where Vin Diesel was going to play Hannibal, so just let that sink in for a minute and what that would be like. And I think the talent here is kind of undeniable. Washington and Fuqua have made some movies before, like The Equalizer Part 3, being the most recent one that they made together. The writer for this movie is someone who is a 2-time Oscar winner who worked on Gladiator, and his name is escaping me at the moment. But the talent's undeniable and good, and it's a really fascinating historical story. And yeah, I think it's definitely a project to keep your eye on. It seems like it has the potential to do kind of what Napoleon is trying to do, and what those types of historical epics are working towards. That this could be cut from that same cloth a little bit.
Tiny butt. So many things that we've, so many movies for so long have been so U.S. focused, and I feel like it's very rare we get a really good historical epic from, times of yore, and for so long the movie industry was so U.S. focused, and I think it's really interesting to get these kind of stories that are parts of other parts of the world history that a lot of times these movies may be made, but they're made by smaller production companies in other countries, and Hollywood making these kinds of Napoleon and something. I wonder if they'll just call it Hannibal. Well, no, I guess that's taken, isn't it?
There's a Hannibal Rising. I don't know if there's just Hannibal, but maybe there is.
Oh, okay. It's probably still be confusing for people. But people will be like, this is the eating guy? He was that old? This is like a prequel? He's a Highlander? Sorry.
When you said Vin Diesel was up for the role previously, I just couldn't help but think, hello, Clarice.
Too many wires getting crossed.
Too many wires crossed
brains
right there.
smoking.
Hello, Clarice. It's all about family. It's all about eating families.
Oh my God.
Okay.
The simulation is overloading right now.
No, I got a great idea for a movie. It's Hannibal, but it's not. It's Hannibal Lecter, but it's Hannibal, and it's Vin Diesel. But he's also Fast and Furious Vin Diesel. Just stay with me. Just keep up.
Come on, guys.
Please no.
I just wonder how many of the audience was with us through all of that. Okay, Netflix has announced that Enola Holmes 3, starring Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill, is currently in early development. What do you think, Haley?
Yeah, Haley, you taking this one?
Well, I tried to watch the first Enola Holmes, and I couldn't get into it. She's just, you know, she's the Netflix girl right now, so good for her. I don't hate Millie Bobby Brown. I've literally like seen her in almost absolutely nothing.
Netflix after Stranger Things, they were like, oh, "We got a new project. We need a young female actress. We already know who to call."
She's in the house with them, like Chris Evans is. You know, he got his Disney checks and then he signed his soul over to Netflix now, and whatever.
That's interesting. I feel like that used to be a thing. I mean, it did used to be a thing. Like literally, actors would sign with a single studio, and that would be their whole thing, right? Like back in the day.
Oh,
And
yeah, the golden age of Hollywood. Ruined lives.
yes, exactly. And it seems like in the last maybe 20, 30 years, it's been different. People just kind of walk to whatever studios make a movie they want to
MCU
make.
actors, it's not been different. And
Right,
Chris
yeah.
Evans, like that was one of the things he was okay with walking away from the franchise about. And now, but he's making like movie after movie with Netflix. And I'm like, wait.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we're returning to something akin to that more so
For sure.
with the streaming services. Anybody else have anything to say about Enola? Sorry, I threw it to Haley to be funny.
Just threw me under the bus. Hey, come be on this podcast. We'll throw you under the bus.
Yeah, when Stranger Things season 3 starts filming, you'll come here for all your Millie Bobby Brown hot takes. We'll just keep tossing them out.
The Millie Bobby Brown Cinematic Universe. Let's get off this.
Oh, man.
The MBBC. Oh,
I was trying to do it. I was trying to do it in my head. MBBCU, yeah. Oh, man.
Make it stop.
Sad how badly I couldn't do that in my head. Like I tried, and you beat me to it, and you were slow, and I was slower. It was really bad. Well, that's all the lightning round for us, guys, and we are going to be back next week with more Multiverse news. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Multiverse Newscast. We do this every week. We produce the show. We really, we work on it, collect all the news, write the show. It takes actually a lot of effort. And please, if you find value in the show, give us $1 a week. Go over there at $4 a week, $4 a month tier on Patreon and support the show. And you get an ad-free version over there. And let's go around and talk about everybody's other projects. Haley Hobbs, what do you do?
I'm on source pages with the aforementioned Brian V. Klein government employee. We just dropped our Loki season 2 review and compared it to the Trials of Loki comics that we read.
I need somebody to draw a comic that's just like BVK, government employee. And Jay Sisson, what are you spending your time doing?
Yeah, you can find me at Commute the Podcast. You can come learn 3 interesting things in 20 minutes on your commute to work. I believe next week is probably going to be our Thanksgiving episode. 3 interesting things about Thanksgiving you can drop around the table. So come join us for that at Commute the Podcast.
Awesome. And Jay Scotty St. Clair, what else do you talk about on the internet?
Primarily animation over at Animation Deliberation, where Invincible Season 2 is in full swing, and it's just incredible to be back in that world and talking about that show. So if you're digging Invincible or Attack on Titan, that show finally ended. So we're talking all about that over there as well. Check us out at Animation Deliberation, wherever you get your podcast.
Sweet. And you can find me at this is Multiverse News, Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast. That's the other place where I'm at weekly. And we're talking a ton about Loki and the Marvels right now. We got a lot of great things. I'm so excited that so many things dropped at one time and we got so much good MCU content to like fill my belly with. And we're going to be talking about that over on Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. Thank you for joining us on Multiverse News. We'll be back next week with more Multiverse News. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on Multiverse News. We are a Stranded Panda podcast. You can check out all our other podcasts at strandedpanda.com. And, go join the Patreon. We need your support. We love you. Thank you for hanging out.